video here that I'm going to make. I used to be the type to focus on only the negative in one place, but I will show you that I can even show a positive side to things, and my opinion still won't change on anything. It could still be just as negative as before, but just I won't be as negative in the public light that maybe I used to be. So if I have to mention positives of the Portland area, in one of the most boring cities in the United States, yes, one of the most boring cities in the United States, with boring ass suburbs, I would say Portland, Oregon takes the cake. But for the positives of Portland, Portland is only good if you A, stay in the city, B, don't drive a car, C, have enough friends to give you rides places, D, walk to the so-called cool places, and E. What's E? If you can access the food carts or something, and you can get around by public transportation, you can do it well, and you don't mind the cold weather in Portland, then you have it made. But it's terrible, however, if you're A, in the suburbs, B, don't come here with a girlfriend already, and you live away from the city, C, have to drive everywhere you go, D, have to live in Tigard or somewhere on the west side, it's absolute fucking hell on earth, E, what's E? More pollution than you would expect in F, tons of assholes. Oh, hey. So, if I had to rate Portland living and put it against the suburbs, I would rate Portland above the suburbs, even if Portland sucks. Portland sucks if you drive a car. I don't care. You can even live in the city and it could suck if you're not going to the right places. And then you're thinking, I live in Portland. I've lived in Portland, but I had an automobile. I live in Portland. Yeah, I have a car to get around, but I got no friends. And I still can't go to the cool places because the parking's tight whenever I go to them. So, you can't own a car if you live in Portland for the ultimate happiness. You can't own a car. That's number one. You can't own a car to be happy here. And I've seen it on vacation. I didn't come with the car. I knew somebody. They give me rides. I took the public transportation and I loved it. But I'm not living that life now. And I don't have that same friend anymore. And I lost that friend that I made. One thing you gotta learn about Portland is that the friends you make in Portland online, when you don't even live here, are not gonna be real friends when you come here. They're gonna eventually ditch you. They're gonna eventually not want to talk to you. You're gonna find that in the beginning that you're not as compatible with them as you thought maybe that you might have been. So they people here kind of scam new people to come here by telling them it's so great to come here. It's great in the area. Meanwhile, you got a more boring city than Omaha. In actual fucking practice. Omaha is a much better place to live than here. I'm dead serious, folks. You know? Or any place boring. Any place boring. Or stereotypically boring, I should say, beats Portland. So what does that say if that's what we're dealing with here? You know? I told someone who was going to move to Portland from Omaha, if you stay in your home city and I come there, I'll meet you. I will meet you. You know, you'll have a new friend. But if you move to Portland and you don't want to stay in Omaha, where I'm trying to leave Portland, I'll show you a little bit of Portland hospitality, and I won't meet you. How's that sound? You want to move here? I won't meet you. I told her, literally. I won't meet you if you come here. If you stay in Omaha, though, and I move there, you'll have a new friend. Okay? I'll meet you. Let's do some films together. Let's, you know... She was a fetishist. She had like a baby fetishist, a diaper fetishist. I think something like that. But She wanted to move to Portland from Omaha, told me how Omaha sucked. I'm like, I don't see it that way. And from someone who's lived in Portland, who's been to Portland, let me tell you something. You will want to go back home once you get here. It's not that good here. Really. Unless you are on the positive list that I mentioned. Oh, and I forgot you have to come here with a girlfriend and friends already. And a love life. And a love life, too. You should bring a girlfriend with you if you're coming here. And even then, people's spouses come here where one hates the place and the other loves the place, and that also causes a problem. I'm a Boston area person. When I first came to Portland, I was like, this reminds me of Lowell. Because I was in Northeast 82nd. It reminded me of Lowell, Massachusetts. It did, with the Asian population. The streets were laid out the same. You had a car wash like you have the Washman car wash. You had a big car wash. It was the same layout almost. I was surprised. And then I saw a hip area. It's almost like if Lowell was bigger and it got hip. So I could see my old home city sort of in Portland. Kind of. And that's what brought me here. And I was living in Florida at the time. But leaving Florida to ever come to Portland was a big mistake. And I was unhappy living in the suburbs of Florida at the time. I was in a new development, living with parents. My mom and stepdad at the time. My mom got remarried 3 times. And her current husband loves Oregon. He tried to get us all out here. And I've been hating it ever since. I'm in Sherwood, in case you want to know. It fucking sucks. It's so not the Portland dream that I envisioned when I visited here in 2008. It's all my fault. I brought all this together. It's my fucking fault. I did this. I take accountability. And I was like, oh no, you didn't do it. It just, I'm like, I did do it. I fucking did do it. In 2008, long before you met your third husband. I found Portland, and I loved it. Visiting with no car. I had a utopian vision of it that stuck in my head for a long time. But it did not materialize when I lived here. I learned I hated it. I fucking hated it. And it is much colder here than you will ever expect. Stick to your winter climates where you're from. You won't be happier here, I'm telling you. Stay in New York. Stay in Connecticut. Stay in New Jersey. It's just going to be the same. Portland's just going to be the same as Hartford, Connecticut. If you own a vehicle, it's going to be the same. The traffic is terrible, gridlock. See, and now they're fighting downstairs. Look at this. So, the situation's breaking up, and I could be moving out. I'm going to be one less complainer living here eventually. It's just taken a long time. And now when I go to Portland, because I have a vehicle and I don't take public transportation, it's too much of a fucking pain now for me. Because the nearest station isn't near my house. Why would I do it? Why would I fucking do it? You know? Why would I bother? But to get the ultimate Portland experience, you have to live here in the city limits with no car. That's the bottom line. You have to get rides from people who have a good enough life here, who don't mind parking places and going places with you. That's the thing. See, listen. Listen to that. They fight too. It's not just me fighting with my parents. She's yelling about her work or something. So this is an example of what's coming to the Portland area. All the people who are coming here are not going to be happy. They're going to have some, they're intensely happy with their decision moving to the suburbs here because there's no XXX shops, there's no porn shops, there's nothing like that. And that's the other thing. The suburbs don't have anything for LGBT people. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. It's a goose egg around here. Unless you're a young family with kids and you're Mormon, stay the fuck out of Portland in the suburbs at least. It's only if you don't have a car and if you live in the city where you could maybe get the most of Portland. And even then, that bubble's kind of dwindling too. But that's my take on Portland. If you walk everywhere, you gotta walk in the sketchiest neighborhoods. You gotta walk every place. to where you can get transportation. Hawthorne, 82nd, you gotta walk all the time in Portland when the weather's nice to get that social experience in Portland. Otherwise, you're not gonna get it. The city falls short on a lot of things. And another thing, food. There's only one positive, food. I have to overtalk them, it seems like, from up here. This is a very high stress life for me. I've never been more tense in my whole fucking life since coming to Portland. I've never been more fucking tense. I was more laid back on the East Coast than I was here. So I'm telling you to save the fucking trip. Save the trip. Stay home. You're not going to be happy here. I'm telling you. There's too many idiots moving here already. Look, here's the other thing. The food. Chicago, for instance, you have shawarma. I know Chicago, they have shawarma. You can't just walk into a little mom and pop business and get a shawarma sandwich in Portland. You have to do it at a food cart, which means you have to walk. Because if you try to park to go to a food cart, it's tight. So that means if you drive an automobile and you live in Portland, maybe on the outskirts of Portland, but in Portland or Gresham, okay? I know because I've lived it. I might live in Sherwood now, but I also lived in Southeast Portland too at one time. In the Gateway section, near Northeast. I know toward Gresham. And if you live there and you own a car, you won't go to the city of Portland that much. You won't. But if you have friends who will drive you places and you live in Portland, you have it made. Okay? That's the only time I'd recommend to come to Portland. Other than that, don't come here. You're just clogging up the roads and making life more miserable. That's it. And even then, you know, too many people have moved here ever since. And now families are breaking down here. I'm telling you, don't do it, people. You're going to be making a fatal mistake moving here. I once thought I loved this place. My dad tried talking me out of it. He couldn't until I saw reality for myself here. He read on, I was like, yeah, you wouldn't fit in there, John. You really wouldn't. I'm like, I think I would, though. Nobody could talk me into it. Now I did this to myself, and I'm stuck in Portland. I'm fucking stuck in this place, living a life I didn't think I would. I went to massage school in Florida, okay? And the Florida standards were the highest in the state at the time. So I thought I could move to Portland and do massage therapy if I take my table. I could live in Hawthorne. I could do massage therapy. I wanted to live in Hawthorne, mind you. Or maybe the Pearl District, somewhere nicer. I didn't envision a life in the suburbs, I'll tell you fucking that right now. I wanted to be near everything. Maybe even Southeast Portland, somewhere. But I wanted to be in a pretty decent part of Portland and practice massage therapy. We're talking 2010. I lost it over coming to Portland when I wasn't living here. After my trip, going to massage school. I thought I went to massage school to forward myself so I could move to Portland. You know, didn't happen the way I thought it would go. And now I'm stuck here. My mom's third husband happens to have ties to Portland, and that has cursed me ever since. I could have let go of this if maybe she didn't meet him. I could have let go of that over time, and I would have just stayed in Florida or something. I moved back to Florida as it was. After being on the West Coast, I moved back to Florida after leaving because my old stepdad lived there. And I used that to get out of California at the time. So I never liked the West Coast coming here. And now Portland is like San Diego or somewhere like that. It just sucks, you know. Those same kind of people infiltrated Portland. And it seemed friendlier when I came here 12 years ago. Plus, I wasn't driving a car, so it felt better. That's my personal... Even taking public transit, I saw the people who I would have a better shot of socializing with, at least. Even if I wasn't making friends every day there, I still talked to a lot more people when I walked everywhere than when I owned an automobile. So think about all that shit before moving to Portland, and don't come here. Save yourself the hassle. Goodbye, everyone.